Hello everyone, welcome back. By the end of this video, you will be able to implement authentication using JWT. If you look at here, I have logged in successfully, and with the verified OTP, I got the JWT token, and with this token, I have with the protected string. And if you look at here, the header, we have included the bearer token, and with this bearer token, it hit the backend server and got the protected resource response, and that is getting displayed here. Without further ado, let's jump into the video. We are going to implement the JWT authentication in this video, and the plan is to generate and validate the JWT, and we're going to add a custom filter that is going to help us in validating the JWT token, and also an exception handler that will return 401 when the authentication fails. And we are also going to add a CROS configuration, which is going to allow our Angular application, which is running on a different domain, to access the resource, access the backend resource. And on Angular side, we are going to store the JWT response from the backend server to local storage, and we're going to create an interceptor that is going to add the authorization header to the request to backend, and also it is going to intercept the response and see if the user is not authenticated, then redirect them back to the login page. And before we jump into it, let's understand what is JWT is. It is called JSON Web Token, and this is an open standard for securely transmitting information in JSON format, right? And the JWTs are commonly used in all the web applications. It's the most widely used for the authentication and authorization purpose, and it is having three segments. It is the header, which is going to hold the token type and the signature algorithm, and the payload, which is going to have the claims and additional data. So this is where we're going to add all our data, whatever you want to send, right? And the signature, which will make sure the integrity of the JSON Web Token. The complete JSON Web Token will be signed with a private key or a secret key, and all these we'll be seeing in our implementation. So just hold on till the end. So the token generation, we're going to create a JWT service. So upon successful authentication, the JWT service is going to generate a JWT token, the JSON Web Token, with the claims, and it's going to set the expiration of the token, how long the token should be valid, and it is going to sign the token with a secret key and send back to the Angular application. And we're going to add a JWT Validation Filter, so that is going to intercept the incoming request to the backend server and validate the JWT from the authorization header. And if it is valid, it is going to set the security context with authentication token and forward to the next filters, and next filters will get executed. And upon all the security filters are executed, and if there is an exception, it will be forwarded to an exception handler that is going to respond back with 401. And if everything looks good and user is authenticated, then it forwards the request to the request controller, and it will respond back with the response. And on Angular side, once the user is successfully authenticated, we'll store the JWT into local storage and navigate to home page. And we're going to create two interceptors. One is to intercept the request and add the JWT token to the authorization header, and another is to intercept the response and see if we are getting 401 and redirect the user back to login page. And let's move into the code. So here we have our application. Here I have added 3 dependencies for JWT token generation and validation. So this is going to support the JWT. So let's go ahead and add a JWT service. So this is the service I've created. So this is going to help us in generating the JWT and validate the JWT and send us the authentication object. Let's create an implementation of this JWT service AMPL and implements JWT service. Let's implement the methods to generate. So let's use JWTs dot builder, right? So this is going to help us in generating. Let's set the issuer. So the issuer is going to be MFA server. dot set subject. The subject is going to be JWT auth token dot set, and we'll add a climb. So all this, the issuer, subject are going to go into the payload. Username, I'll set the incoming username to this dot set issued at. So we need a date, so we can create a date object here and pass in the date here, and let's set the expiration. So the expiration will say how long the JWT has to be valid. Let me say new date dot get time plus let's add 60,000 milliseconds. Now we have set all the properties for the JWT. So now we are going to sign the JWT with a secret key. So we need a secret key here, right? So for this secret key, a variable which holds the secret key, let's say private final secret key, and this secret key is going to be keys dot, and we are going to use HMAC. So we need to pass in a key here. So what I'm gonna do is, let me create a variable private final string and key, and I'm gonna paste in a base 64 key which I already have in place. I'm gonna pass in the key dot bytes. It's gonna be UTF-8. So this is gonna be the secret key we're going to use, and this is using HMAC algorithm. So this is gonna dot compact is going to give us a string form of the JWT. Let me return this. So now we have a JWT token generated. So that's simple. Now we can call this after the OTP is generated. Let's go back to our authentication controller dependency here. Let's copy this, and after the OTP is validated, dot generate, and we have the username from the request dot get a username. There's an exception, there's a pass exception, we'll add it to the method. Let's copy this, and instead of the dummy token, we'll paste the actual token that's getting generated. With this, the generation process is done. So after successful valid authentication, we should get a JWT token back. And let's run this application. I think we need to annotate this as a service. Let me add service annotation here. Yep, that's good. And let me restart the server. Here go, the application is started. Let's go to the UI, and meanwhile I'll open the developer tools to show you how the JWT is generated. Let me add it to the right. So if you look at here, we got a JWT token. Right, let me take this token, be the value, and go to the JWT validator, and let me paste it here. And if you look at here, the value which we have added, which is the issuer, subject, username, and the issued at and the expiration. So everything you can see on the payload, and the header is having the algorithm, the token type, and if you look at the verification signature, that is verified with HMAC, HSE, HMAC SHA 256. And now if we go back here and look at the application, and the storage has a token which is which is already storing the JWT for us. This code is already done in the Angular application. If you look at here on the MFA, so this is calling the login, and you can see here, so this is adding the item to the JWT. So with this, it will clear the local storage, and we'll add the JWT token. And we don't need this method validate MFA because we are validating inside the component itself, right? So this makes the first step done. We are successfully authenticated. We got the JWT, and we also set the JWT into the local storage. So now we need to add this JWT to the request which is going to the backend. So for that, we are going to use the Angular code. We're going to update it. So we already have an interceptor which is available. So if you look at here, so this is already adding the token to the header. So whenever there is a request going out, this is already adding it. So this interceptor is added to the application module at this section, providers, as it is going to be an HTTP interceptor, and this is a token interceptor that we have added, the token interceptor class. So if you look at here, so let's verify this by calling a protected URL. Let me go to the backend and add an endpoint, so that's going to be a protected URL. It will not be accessed until you are authorized. Let me view the toolbar, project. Let me add a new controller and let me annotate this with REST controller, and we will add an endpoint, get mapping, and this is going to be protected string public. It's going to return a response string, and it's going to get, there's no parameter for this, and return. That's cool. So for now we cannot access the resource, because if you look at the security configuration, let me go here and let's show you the security configuration. So for now we have allowed error, confirm email, register, login, and verify OTP. So apart from this, none other URL will be accessed until you are authenticated. So now I'm going to add a filter. So let's create a new package. I'm gonna say filter, and let me create a new class, JWT Validation Filter. It's gonna say a component and implements once per request filter. Okay, I think, yep. Let me implement the method. That's going to be doFilter. So at the first step, what you're going to do is, if you look at our UI code, so the UI code, the token interceptor is adding a custom header. I mean, it's not a custom header, so this is an authorization header that is adding. So it is adding bearer followed by a space and then the token. So what we are going to do is, we're going to trim that bearer from the token. So for that, let's write a method private string get JWT. We're going to pass in the HTTP request. So what I'll do is I'll return the JWT. So this is going to give the authorization header, and what I'm going to do, if objects dot non-null of JWT, scroll up, JWT, and JWT dot starts with bearer, right? Then it should also have the JWT in it, right? So let me say, and JWT dot length is greater than 7, because bearer and a space includes 7, so it should be greater than that, and return JWT dot substring of 7. So it is going to return us the token, else we'll return a null, and this is going to be string JWT equals get JWT token of request, then process further. Okay, so this is a class, so I'll extend. Let's auto-void the JWT service here, create a constructor and add it, JWT service dot validate JWT. So this is going to return us authentication object, username password authentication equals this. Let me cast this to username password authentication token. Right, so now I'm also going to set additional properties to the authentication dot set details and new web authentication detail source, and this is going to have the request dot details. It's going to have the request, so that the token will be having with which request it sets the authentication token to the security context. Sorry, let's see, security context holder dot get context dot set authentication of this authentication, right? So this means the user is authenticated now to access the resource. So let's wrap this everything inside a and try catch. We are not going to do anything, because if you are not setting the security context, then it's obviously going to throw an exception in the for the filters. So we're gonna just log. So to add the log, let me add this slf4j say log dot error, right? And we also say get message. So we'll have some information here, and we'll call the next filter by using filter chain dot do filter and pass in the request comma response, and that it's gonna call the further next filters. So we need to add this filter to our security configuration. So let's go back here, private final JWT validation filter, and let me create a constructor, and this is gonna have added. And now I'll call, let me minimize this, dot add filter before in JWT validation filter comma. So this is going to be executed before we validate the username and password authentication filter, because we don't have a username or password. Instead, we are passing the JWT as a valid authentication token. So it's going to be validated, and the authentication object, the security context, will be set with the authentication token, right? So this is going to get executed before the username and password authentication filter. So with this, we are done with adding the filter, right? This will give the access to the resource, but this is going to set the authentication to the security context. But as we have our application running on a different port, so that comes as a cross site, right? Cross origin, and the cross origin resource sharing, it needs to be configured with the respective parameters so that it will be allowed to respond to the UI, right? So let me configure this. For this, let me create a bean here, configuration source, and this source gonna be, create a new cross configuration. So cross configuration dot set. So here, if you look at, we can set the allowed headers, allowed credentials, the exposed headers, and the allowed methods, and also the origin pattern, the allowed origin. So we are going to set the origin first. So we are going to allow arrays, so dot as list. So we are going to have our backend application, the front-end application that is running in localhost 4200, right? This is allowed origin now. So now after this, set allowed methods will allow that as list get post for now, and let's say configuration dot set allowed headers, right? So this header, this is where, because from UI we are sending the token in authorization header, right? So with that token required for user authentication, so let's add that here, arrays dot as list, let's add authorization so that it'll be received here. I think this is enough for now. And when we discuss about the CSR of protection, we will see further on what are like headers that needs to be exposed for the CSRF token, right? Let me create, and now source dot register cross configuration. Let's add this, and our configuration for everything, this configuration will be applied, right, for all the URLs. Let me add this, and we'll return the source. So now the cross configuration, the CROS configuration says that allow every so do share the resources to this origin, and whenever you receive a method of this, and you also have to allow the header, which is authorization header, and for all this URL pattern, apply this configuration. So you can also define different set of configuration for different set of URLs. So let's say you might be having / authorization authentication, or / private, or / protected URLs. So whenever that comes in, so if you want to protect certain endpoints, so you can configure those here, and then let's use this here, configuration source, and of source CROS configuration source. Yep. So with this, we have set the CROS configuration also, and now we should be able to access the protected resource that is in the private resource controller, right? And now there is one more piece that is missing, is the exception handler. whenever there is an exception happening, we need to handle the exceptions, right? So exception handling, we'll give a handler, handle dot point. So here we will define our exception handler, right? So for this, let me go back, and the security, let me create a new class which is named as, and this is going to implement authentication entry point, right? And implement methods, and let me annotate this as a component and add SLF4J for this. So every time there is an exception happening, so this handler will be called, right? So what we are going to do is we're going to say log.error. What is the error happen, right? So it's going to be, of course it's going to be for something. So let's have this as un, and we'll add the message exception dot get message, and we will respond back response dot send error. So we're going to send error message that is going to be unauthorized. So this is going to be the 401 that we are going to pass on to the UI, that the user is unauthorized, and we'll say, so this is going to handle the exception. So let's auto wire this into our security configuration. Go here, let's add it to the exception handling entry point, and there we go. So now the application is complete, the backend application is complete to handle the exception as well. So it will handle the exception and respond back to the UI saying that the user is unauthenticated with 401. So now let's save this and execute this, and also we'll work on the UI to accommodate all these changes. Now let's create a service. The service has been created. Let me go back here, and we'll add private HTTP client, and this will help us to call the service. Let me call get protected string. I don't need any parameter, and this is going to return observable of string, and return this dot HTTP client dot get of, we'll say, the environment. The environment has the URL, so let me use the API URL plus protected string, and we will pass in, and this is going to be of response type string. I think we can pass it as text, right? And that should return us the data. And let me call this from home component. Let me go to the home component. Let me inject the service. Service is home service. Let's say, let me create a variable. Let's say it's string, and this is going to be empty for initially. And this dot home service dot get protected string dot subscribe, and this string is going to be assigned to this dot message, and that's it. And it runs into the string. So let me go to here, and this should be a string. Yep, should be okay. And let me go to the HTML and add a new class message so that it will display the message. So let me display it in H2 and save it, and let me start the server. The application is started now. The application. So if you look at here, we didn't get the response because we see the body, but there is no message in it. It seems like there is an error. So it says 401 unauthorized, but still we're able to see the user home page. This is not accepted, right? So whenever the user is not authorized, they should be logged out of the application. So what we can do is, let's go ahead and add an interceptor, another interceptor that is going to do this job for us. Let's copy paste the same thing and rename it error interceptor, and let me rename this as error interceptor. And what I'm going to do inside this is I'm going to check for the request. Let me remove all this. I'm going to pipe this and then catch the error, and this is going to be error equals 401, and it is not the login page. So to verify that, private is login page. Let me pass in the request. These two URLs we are going to skip. We'll check that. This dot is login page of request if this is the case, then if it is not the login page, then let me get the authentication client dot logout. So this is going to do the magic of sending the user back to. So if you look at here, it is going to remove the token, and it is also going to navigate back to the login page. We go back here, and with this we also need to throw the error, return throw error, and what we are going to throw, we're going to throw error message. So this is going to give us the error message, so we will return that. We'll just throw with this error. Right, so with this interceptor is done. So further we need to add this interceptor to our application module. Go to the application module, just copy this segment right here and put a comma and add it once again, and this time this interceptor is going to be error interceptor. Let me save this and head back to the browser. Let's see now what is happening. Application is getting recompiled, and this time it redirects back us to the login page, and now we can log in. Okay, so now if you look at here, the post has been blocked by the CROS policy. So let's head back to our security configuration, see what all headers are being passed. See, if you look at here on the network tab, go to login headers. So if you look at here, so we are passing in content type, which is again that's an header which is not allowed, which is not allowed now. So now let me add that here, content typ, and let me go back and see now how that works now. And we have to restart the server. Let's go back now. The application is started. Let me hit again, and this time it allowed me because the content type was not set as an allowed header in the CROS configuration. So now I've done this, and let me put the token, submit, and here there's something going on. It says 401 unauthorized. It means we have sent an invalid token. We check this, preview headers, and we have the token in place. So now all the requests are getting rejected because we are getting 401 unauthorized. This is because we have not implemented the validate JWT, which returns the authentication token, right? So let's implement this. We have the secret key already. So now what we will do, we'll create a parser builder using JWTs dot parser builder dot set signing key. We have the secret key here already, dot build. This is going to give us the builder. Let me create a local variable for this, the parser. So we're gonna see JWT parser, parse climbs, JWS. Let me pass the JWT, and this is going to give us the climbs. You can get the body so that we'll get body instead of JWS. Will get us a climbs, and let's say climbs dot get or default. You will get the username. Default value is going to be null. I'll say string username equals string, and if we are going to set the authentication, so let's say username password authentication token username, and we're going to set the password as null, and there is no authorities for now. So let me say new array list, and I'm going to return this pass new, and that's it. And this should return us the token, and that will be retrieved back on the other side on the filter which validates the JWT. Let me restart the server. So we go, the application is started now. Let me go back to the application, view application. Let me put in the credentials. There we go, we got the resource accessed finally. So this shows that we are able to successfully access the private resource, the protected resources from the backend server using the JWT token. Hope this video is useful for you guys. If you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and do share it with your friends. Thank you. We'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.